This is the first time in history that a fifth round pick has led jersey sales.
Yeah.
Nobody is watching third, fourth round as much.
What if I told you the most underpaid player in the NFL draft is now the highest earning player in the entire league? Not Patrick Mahomes, not Josh Allen, not the first overall pick, a fifth round pick. A guy they tried to embarrass on draft day. A guy whose phone didn't ring for 4 rounds, while lesser players heard their name called first. That guy, Shedeur Sanders, is now sitting on a bag so big that Cam Newton, a Super Bowl quarterback, an MVP, a man who's seen everything this league has to offer, stopped mid-conversation and said, "I have never seen anything like this in my life." And when Cam Newton says that, you better pay attention. Because this isn't just a sports story anymore. This is about a young man who refused to let this league define his worth. And what happened next honestly gave me chills. Stay with me, because this story gets wild.
You got to understand, freedom of speech is not free. And I think what Shedeur was doing, what Shedeur was saying, what his father was saying, and the way the father has kind of engulfed his children as you're going into a league where it's like, yo, I'm going to win. Like, it's everything is resume based. We won everywhere. Yeah, y'all changed the culture.
Let's go back to draft night. Picture this. Every analyst, every expert, every mock draft in America had Shedeur Sanders going in the first round. Some had him top 5. The son of Deion Sanders, a quarterback with ice in his veins, a guy who won everywhere he played. And then the first round passed. No call. Second round. Still no call. Third. Fourth. Silence. Can you imagine sitting in that room, your family around you, cameras on your face, and pick after pick, your name isn't called? People on social media are already writing your obituary. Critics are dancing. Haters are celebrating. Now here's the part nobody talks about enough, and Cam Newton made sure to bring this up directly. Throughout that entire draft process, Shedeur Sanders dealt with racist commentary, real, ugly, deliberate attempts to tear him down. People questioned his talent, questioned his bloodline, questioned whether he deserved to be there, not based on film, not based on stats, but based on who his father is and what he looks like. They tried to make him feel small. And you know what Shedeur did? He smiled. He stayed calm. He trusted the process that his father, Deion, had prepared him for his entire life. Because here's what they didn't understand. Shedeur Sanders walked into that draft already holding cards they didn't know existed. Now this is where Cam Newton's jaw literally dropped. And honestly, mine did too. Before Shedeur Sanders ever put on an NFL helmet, before he ever took a single professional snap, Nike came knocking. And not with some small rookie deal, not with a discount offer because of his draft position. Nike handed Shedeur Sanders a $125 million contract. $125 million signed while he was technically still a college player. 25 of that guaranteed, locked in, done, before anyone even knew what round he'd be drafted in. But wait, it gets better, because smart people build smart contracts. The moment Shedeur stepped onto that NFL field for his first preseason game, Nike's deal had what they called a professional player escalation clause built right in. You know what that means? Boom! Overnight, that $125 million deal doubled. Shedeur Sanders is now on a $250 million Nike contract across 4 seasons. Let me say that again so it really lands. A 5th round pick, making $250 million from Nike alone. Cam Newton broke this down on his show, and the energy in the room completely shifted, because everyone there understood what this meant. This league, this system that tried to slide Shedeur down the draft board to humble him, that same system handed him a $250 million platform before he even played a regular season game. And then, because apparently the universe wasn't done yet, Shedeur negotiated something no rookie in NFL history has ever gotten: 50% ownership of his jersey sales revenue. Half of every single jersey sold goes directly into his pocket. And Cam Newton flat out said he's never witnessed a fifth-round selection generate this kind of cash flow, ever in the history of the league. Now, I need you to understand something about Shedeur Sanders' cultural power. This isn't just about football. This is about what he means to people. Nike understood this. So when they launched the Shedeur Sanders signature sneaker collection, they didn't just drop a shoe. They built an entire experience around it. They brought out his original college cleats, the ones he wore when he first started making noise. They told his story from the beginning, from college underdog to professional icon. And the result? $20 million in 48 hours. 2 days, $20 million from sneakers. Deion Sanders Jr. showed up to that launch, and he stood there watching his little brother's name on those shoes, his story on those walls, and you could see it. Pure, unfiltered family pride. This wasn't just a product launch. This was a victory lap for an entire family that had been doubted, tested, and attacked every single step of the way. And the fans? They showed up in numbers, because Shedeur's supporters aren't casual fans. They're people who see themselves in his story. They see the doubt they've faced, the rooms they weren't supposed to be in, the moments people tried to count them out. When Shedeur wins, they win. That's not marketing. You can't manufacture that. That's real. And then came the jersey sales. Cam Newton dropped this stat and the sports world went completely quiet. Shedeur Sanders, a fifth-round pick, led the entire NFL in jersey sales during his rookie year. Not the first overall pick, not a veteran superstar, not an established Pro Bowler. A fifth-round pick, leading jersey sales for the first time in NFL history. We're talking roughly $30 million in jersey revenue in a single season, and with his 50% ownership deal, you do the math on what's going directly into Shedeur's bank account. Cam Newton said it plain and simple. Nobody is watching the third round, the fourth round, the fifth round the way people are watching Shedeur Sanders. Nobody. The eyeballs, the attention, the money, it all flows to one jersey, one name, one number. When you add up the Nike contract, the jersey ownership deal, the sneaker launch, the sponsorships, the business ventures, Cam Newton made a statement that is going to live rent-free in this league's head forever. Shedeur Sanders is the top-earning NFL player in total compensation when you account for everything beyond his basic playing salary. Read that slowly. The guy they put in round 5 is out-earning the guys they put in round 1. I want to slow down here for a second because I think we need to really feel this moment. Cam Newton didn't just share stats. He shared something deeper. He talked about what Deion Sanders built, this champion mindset, this unshakable identity, this understanding that your worth is never determined by where someone puts you. It's determined by who you are. Deion prepared his son for this moment. Every press conference, every interview, every time Shedeur walked into a room with his head held high when the noise was at its loudest, that was Deion's fingerprints. That was family. That was love. And Shedeur, he never changed who he was to make people comfortable. He stayed authentic. He stayed confident. He stayed Shedeur. And that authenticity, that refusal to shrink, became his greatest asset. Not his arm strength, not his release, his identity. Because in a league full of players trying to fit into a mold, Shedeur Sanders broke the mold entirely. And the people who had been waiting for someone like him, they showed up, bought the jersey, bought the shoes, followed every snap, every moment. That's why Cam Newton is talking about him like this. That's why Nike wrote that check before the draft even happened. That's why the jersey numbers look like what they look like. It was never about the round he was drafted in. It was always going to be about who he is. So here's my question for you. If this is what Shedeur Sanders accomplished in his rookie year after being doubted, disrespected, drafted in round 5, after every obstacle they threw in his path, what happens next? What happens when this young man is 2, 3, 4 years into his career, when the brand is even bigger, when the wins stack up, when the league has no choice but to fully reckon with what he's built? I'll tell you what happens. History. Documented. Real. Undeniable. This is one of those stories you're going to tell people about years from now. You're going to say, I watched that happen. I was there when Shedeur Sanders turned a fifth-round pick into a $250 million empire. And they tried to stop it. They really did. Didn't work. If this story moved you, if you feel what I feel right now, smash that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that where you start doesn't determine where you finish, and subscribe because we cover stories like this every single week. See you in the next one.